All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our info session today on community engagement, leadership, and development for the spring-summer 2026 session. My name is Mashur Chaudhry, and I am the manager of recruitment and sales for the Chang School. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the land on which the Toronto Metropolitan University is built upon. Toronto is in the Dish with One Spoon territory. The Dish with One Spoon is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. I thank the Indigenous people of Turtle Island for their efforts to protect the land, and I deeply regret the past injustices they have endured. As Toronto Metropolitan University seeks to move forward in partnership with Indigenous peoples, I pledge to foster an environment that is more inclusive and welcoming of all Indigenous peoples from all communities. Now, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's session. Your microphone is muted throughout the event so as not to disturb other attendees or presenters. For the hearing impaired, we have automated captioning available, which you can access by activating it in the toolbar at the bottom of your screen. You can submit questions for today's speakers at any time by typing them into the question box in your control panel, and we'll collect them throughout the session and address them at the end of the presentation. Now, I'd like to introduce our speakers for today, Sheila Wilmot, course instructor at the Chang School, and Roxanne Hawker Fisher, employment and training consultant at Ministry of Labor, Immigration and Training and Skill Development, and is also a student of the certificate. Now, before we dive into our presentation, I want to take a quick temperature of the room, and we've got a Mentimeter for everyone to take part in. So let me go ahead and share that with everyone. It'll only take a couple of seconds. Go ahead and grab your phones or open a browser and head to menti.com. You'll see the code up on the screen. Just enter it and we'll see your responses come in live. So if you can just head to menti.com, the code is 29686657. And we'll leave the Mentimeter on for just a few seconds. We wanted to get the feedback from everyone. And the question that we have that we want you to answer on this poll is what motivated you to consider the certificate? And we've got your options there. One is career advancement. Next, we've got career change, uh, followed by skill building for current role, personal interest, and other. Okay, so yeah, we're seeing some responses come in. Thank you for entering those responses. So we've got one for career advancement, one for skill building for current role, and then we've got one for personal interest. So yeah, that's really good to see. One more for career advancement. That's great. That's pretty consistent with the other sessions that we've had so far. And yeah, we'll leave that on for a few more seconds, and then we've just got one more poll for everybody to answer. All right, so I'm going to move ahead to the next poll, which is what is your current level of knowledge in this field? So we want to have an idea of our audience and what is your level of knowledge of this field that really helps our speakers tailor their presentations and their speaking points as well. So we've got three options in this one. One is hi, I'm well informed about the field. Two is, moderate, basic awareness, and three is minimal or no prior knowledge. So yeah, once again, it's menti.com and the code is 29686657. If you can enter in your responses, we've got a couple that are in already. So one for moderate, one for low. I'm just waiting for the rest. We'll leave that on for a few more seconds and then we will go ahead and get started with our presentation. And just so you know, if you don't have any prior knowledge, that is totally fine because we do have a lot of people that join in for this course with no prior knowledge, and it's not required. But I see, most of you have basic awareness, which is great to see. All right, we will go ahead and end this poll right now. And Randall, I will throw it back to you for sharing the presentation slides. Awesome. So now I'll invite Sheila to go over a brief overview of the certificate. Sheila is a trauma-informed equity and human rights consultant, workshop designer and facilitator, and also community engagement course instructor at the Chang School. Welcome, Sheila.
Thanks, Masher. Welcome, everyone. So we're going to go through a series of slides here that gives you a solid overview of the program and also some real clear details about careers you might that the program is actually good for enhancing or developing. And I'll give you a snapshot too of the kind of projects learners do in the capstone course, which is I'll explain more about in a minute. So you see here in the quick facts, it's a fully online course and asynchronous, which means you can be online whenever you wish. There's no live component at all to it. There's very dynamic, interactive lectures with audio and video, and you can participate in them. And there's participation discussions, but everything's online, so it's advantageous to people with different schedules and people who are different time zones. There are four core courses, two electives. Usually takes 1 to 2 years, depending on people's circumstances, and the cost there is $3,500 to $3,800. And you can just try out one course too, right? You don't have to commit to the entire certificate. You can just pick a course and see see what it's like. So trends and emerging jobs. Many jobs, but nonprofit and the private sector, uh, many more all the time are emphasizing community engagement and to the degree of building partnerships, not just getting people involved, but building relationships with people and also doing advocacy for people. And the part of the work that we do in community engagement is working with vulnerable communities who are always marginalized, and deepening social inequality only makes that more pronounced as we go along. Sectors continue to be impacted in ways that have challenged how they do the work they do. They're impacted by social inequality, cuts to services, economic downturn. Blending of hybrid and remote service delivery and adapt to challenging situations is an ongoing issue. In fact, in one of the courses, the community engagement practices course that I designed and redesigned, we have a whole module dedicated to thinking through whether you do in-person, remote, or hybrid in your community engagement event. And no matter what the sector is, the skills gained in the certificate are applicable to many areas of service delivery advocacy, and as I said, also in the private sector. So here's some possible career paths that, based on research done by the TMU Career and Co-op Center, community outreach coordinator, relief harm reduction worker, community engagement coordinator, community educator, housing support worker, intake worker, social housing manager, labor organizer or union steward, development and community engagement consultant, and program manager. And I can tell you that some of our past learners have actually gone on to management positions such as social housing manager after taking their certificate. So who should take this? People take it for a range of reasons. If you're ready to pivot into community development space, but you don't have a lot of background with community development is one of the forms of community engagement. If you're an experienced community worker seeking to expand your education skills and careers prospects, this is a good learning space for you. If you're an undergraduate, a student, or a recent graduate in fields like social work, public health, education, or healthcare, and you're looking to enhance your expertise, in particular with practical skills. So there's, as I said, there's different reasons why people will take up the certificate. So we have here our suggested learning path, and it's not, as you can see, it's not mandatory you follow it in this way. Sometimes an elective will come up when you first start the certificate that you really want to take, and it may not be offered in the next year. So that's okay. Like we are flexible for that. But the suggested path is first take the three required courses, and that doesn't mean all at the same time. It just means take them initially in your certificate. Um, so that's the Community Engagement Foundations course, Engaging Diverse Communities, and the Community Engagement Practices course. And then you also take two electives, and there's a range of areas and sectors in which you can take up electives from food security, disability issues, Indigenous studies, settlement and immigration fundraising, family issues, leadership, program planning. There's all kinds of areas, as you can see, that you can draw on. And then we suggest that the final course be the capstone course. That's when I've taught the practices course, and I continue to teach the capstone course, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. So this is our suggestion, but as I say, it's it, it's flexible depending on your circumstances and what's available when you sign up. So, by completing the certificate, you will be able to enact and support active citizen participation in community and civic affairs. You'll be able to engage excluded groups to improve the well-being of neighborhoods and organizations, which is really significant. It's a really significant skill set to have. Assess and understand the demographics of an area to be able to guide community outreach and engagement initiatives, and to be able to have all these other skill sets to be able to advocate, to be able to conduct research, whether qualitative or quantitative, and evaluate community programs. So the highlights, as I noted earlier, the final core course is a capstone. It's an experiential learning opportunity through a community-based project, and you set that up yourself in a sector of your interest, a topic of your mutual interest with an organization. And I'm just going to give you a quick example of some of the projects that, based on some of the projects that students are doing right now this term. Somebody's doing a community engagement toolkit for public art projects. Somebody's building a community-centered engagement framework for Black and racialized youth. Somebody else is doing a gender-based violence toolkit for service providers. And then another example is land-based learning through eco clubs, ecology clubs, with a focus on Indigenous sovereignty. So you can see just from that little snapshot of 4 or 5 projects that there's a range of things that you can take up. And I'm available to you prior to taking the course to help you sort that out and make sure that you're on the right track and doing something manageable and doable for the time that is available in a capstone course. And as I mentioned at the beginning, courses are all online, so it's flexible to your schedule. You sign on to do your work when it's convenient to you and engage in the discussion board in an asynchronous way. Discussion boards. They are degree credit courses too, which is great, and OSAP eligible. And so if you are looking to do an undergraduate degree, you can scaffold these courses into a degree if you want to in the future. And as we've seen, skills are relevant to multiple sectors. There's also merit-based and need-based financial awards. So what learner benefits beyond the certificate itself and the access to career improvements or career change. When you're a student at TMU, you have access to career advising and professional development support, which is huge. Like if you would like to have someone, for example, look at your resume and go over it with you and improve it, you can do that as part of being a learner in the certificate program. You can make industry connections, student community and networking opportunities are available, flexible learning with dedicated academic guidance. That, for example, with like myself, full access to TMU resources and learner privileges. Well, there's all kinds of centers and sub-organizations within TMU there for you, and access to financial support, as I noted earlier, like OSAP and bursaries. So thank you. I hope that was helpful.
Thank you so much, Sheila, for sharing that overview and going over all the details and the benefits for students as well. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Roxanne Hawker Fisher, employment and training consultant at Ministry of Labor, Immigration, Training and Skills Development. And Roxanne is also a student of the certificate. She also has experience working with the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services, which puts her in a really unique position to provide us a valuable insight into community engagement. And I welcome Roxanne to share a little bit of her experience in the certificate. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Masru. It's a pleasure to be here to share with you my living experience with how this certificate program has impacted my career journey. As mentioned before, yes, I worked with the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services for most of my career. I've moved over to the Employment and Training Division for the past 3 years. And the information that I've learned from this program not only helped me with the providing assistance for vulnerable Ontarians on that end, it's helping me now to provide services to persons that are facing employment challenges. And it's been an interesting learning journey for me because working in social assistance, for me, I thought I knew it all. Based on my experience, but once you get to learn about the reasons a certain population becomes vulnerable, it helps you to view them in a different light. It helps you to provide more services, to go the extra mile, to go or think outside of the box, right? There's a big push now within our organization for community engagement. And that is because there's there's the policies that are written to govern how we administer the program. And right now where I am, I administer, I think, in excess of 6 programs. I don't even remember, because working with social assistance, it was just one program. You follow the legislations, guidelines, and everything. But in this portfolio that I have, it's so many different programs, and I'm able to use all of the information that I've learned to share it with service providers. Because one of the things I do is manage a transfer payment agreement. So when I go to do site visits, to visit with the service providers to see that the services they're providing to the community, I'm able to use my knowledge to tell them like how they can enhance service in their communities. And it's been well received. And I've seen, like, the last one I visited was actually in January, where I offered some support to them and guidance as to the direction they should be going to make sure whenever someone comes in and they're facing employment challenges, to not only just look at the employment piece, to have a conversation with them to find out more of what's going on with their story, to do warm transfer or warm referrals in terms of like if someone is facing challenges with housing, let them know where to refer them, have all these resources available so that you can transfer that person, be able to give them guidance so that they're not left out in the open asking, with questions unanswered. There is this certificate program, and I like the flexibility as well with the certificate program, in that I'm not rushing home every day to attend class or rushing to Toronto to attend class. I like the online platform, the flexibility of that. And one thing I wanted to mention too is one of the programs that I administer is the Better Jobs Ontario program. And they have changed as of August 20th of last year, they have changed the eligibility criteria for that. So it's now funding for up to 2 years. So persons may be eligible for that. So you might want to explore that as well if you're having, if you're thinking about the financial challenges that are involved in getting into this program. It is worth the while, because I can tell you from my experience, it is helping me in terms of career path. I've changed jobs recently, as in January as well. I've been able to change from what I was doing to a different portfolio in a different location. And I did use my community engagement experience, my learning path, to help me with not only my interviews, because these competitions are very tough. Like, you have a panel of, I think it was 4 persons asking you questions, and a lot of them were geared towards providing community support, because as I mentioned before, that's the direction that the ministry is taking their service delivery to the public. So a lot of the questions were geared towards that. There was a presentation where I was able to use the information that I learned to plug it into that presentation. And when I was offered the job, I was told that I did an excellent job with my presentation. And like I mentioned, it's all because of my learning, the knowledge that I gained from this program. And it was very helpful and continue to be very, very helpful to me. Thank you.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing, and also thank you for sharing that little information about Better Jobs Ontario, that they have expanded. I know we always get students asking us about Better Jobs Ontario, and I believe it was 1 year before. So it's great to hear that that they've expanded that to 2. So that ends the presentation portion of today's session. And we will now open the floor to everyone for questions and answers. Please enter your questions by typing them into the question box of the control panel, and we will answer them one by one. So we've got one question that's come in already, and Sheila, maybe you can take this one. How much of the program is theory versus hands-on learning, projects, case studies, real community work?
Yes, well, it's a mix, and it's an intentional mix in each of the courses, the core courses and the electives. So such that theory and practice is intertwined. So, and learning theory is about understanding the world and figuring out your approach to working in the world. And then you apply that in practice through case studies, through activities, which are online in a discussion forum, and then ultimately in your capstone project. It's very independent and focused on experiential learning, getting out there and applying the skills that you've been developing and the new knowledge in a sector and on a topic that you're interested in.
Great. Love to hear that. Okay, next one is how often is the curriculum updated to reflect current community engagement practices?
Well, I know I can speak to I can speak to my own experience. When I was teaching the practices course, I would review um, uh, I would review readings and topics, just a general review each term before before the next term, and if there was a new reading that came out, or a new approach, or a new tool, I would add that. I can tell you that every 5 years, though, there are major redevelopments of all the courses, and to reflect what's going on currently in the field.
Brilliant. Thank you. Okay, so next one, and maybe Roxanne, you can start with this one, is how do students typically leverage this certificate to advance their careers or transition into community-focused roles?
Okay, as I mentioned before, I recently changed jobs, and one of the things I use is this certificate program. I was able to, in my resume, tie it into the requirements of the job. So basically, the job spec, the job ad had qualifications. They were asking about your stakeholder relationship. They were asking for community engagement. How would you, and one of the questions too in a competition is, how would you engage with a stakeholder to deliver service to a vulnerable community, like a community that's faced with unemployment or homelessness? How would you do that? Using the courses that I've learned, I was able to pull apart certain aspects of the program and apply it to that. So for instance, it said while I was enrolled in this program, I did this course, and this course was geared towards doing research pertaining to homelessness. I wrote a paper, or 8 or 10 pages paper where I had to research. One of them was I went to a community agency to find out hands-on what were the gaps. So the Capstone project is incredible. It helps you to not only fill gaps within your organization, but you can also go fill gaps within the community. So that one was very helpful. That is what I used to apply for the job, and that is what I used in the competition as well. And then there's another question for Roxanne, interested in public service. How can a certificate like this help open the doors and role? Like I mentioned, at this time, there is I think 28 permanent caseworker positions that opened. If you go to Go Jobs, I'm not sure if it's still available, but if you go through the application, the job ad, you'll see that it speaks to, I think they do have some aspects of community engagement. That's one of the things that they're looking for. The 828 permanent caseworker roles, they're looking for intake workers as well. So this program, the certificate program too, will help you to understand vulnerable communities, right? So that you're able to apply that in your role as an intake worker. Yes, they will have guidelines that you have to follow, but it helps you to broaden your scope of understanding of community. And one of the things to when you're doing the intake, you'll be able to do warm referrals as well. And that's what you can use in your interview as well and on your resume.
Love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so next question, and maybe Sheila, you can chime into this one, is how does the program engage with Toronto's diverse communities, including Indigenous, newcomer, and equity deserving populations? And are there any partnership opportunities with local organizations like the City of Toronto, Toronto Public Library, or neighborhood-based nonprofits?
So I can say to start off that the program materials in all of our courses our core courses in the capstone course are focused really on a intersectional, anti-oppression, decolonizing, and social justice approach. A lot of big words. Uh, Not, but it's not just ideology in our case. There's a lot of practical information about how do you do that in process? How do you actually develop those relationships across all kinds of difference and vulnerability? And Roxanne was sharing some of her successful experience with that. And in terms of the practicum and partnership opportunities, um, when you come to the capstone course, you have the opportunity. So for yourself, if you are interested in working, doing a capstone project with the public library, you are most welcome to approach the public library and pitch a course, pitch a project. And as I said, I can help you navigate that ahead of time, figure out the best way to do it and who to talk to and that sort of thing. But yes, you absolutely have the opportunity to go out and do that. And I can finally would say that a lot of our case studies that we have in our courses they come from real life experience in urban situations as well as rural situations with socially marginalized folks.
That's a great answer. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sheila. So next question is from Marceline Bristol. Thank you so much for your question or questions. So two questions from her. One is about Better Jobs Ontario, if this program qualifies. I'm not sure about that. Roxanne, maybe you'd have some information. And then the next one is there a high demand in the labor market for the skills earned in this certificate?
Okay, so for the Better Jobs Ontario program, like I mentioned before, it has expanded to a 2 year as opposed to the 1 year, the 12 months. What they will ask for is verification that the program is a 2 year program where, and as you can see, I think on the website, it does say that you can finish the program within 2 years, that you can use the funding that, in terms of how much the course will cost, books, and associate costs that you will have to, work out with the university to get to provide to the workers so that they can assess your application. And is there a high demand in the labor market for the skills? I'm not sure. I haven't, for this year, to be honest with you, I haven't looked at the labor market information because my past portfolio, that was my thing every single month. Like I had to look at the labor market trends and stuff like that. What I can tell you is within the Ministry of Labor, Immigration, Training and Skills Development, and within the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services, having that certificate will add value to your application because it does show that you have a community engagement certificate, which gives you some experience into the role, and that would help you. And like I mentioned before, I did use it in competitions that I was successful in.
Sheila, anything you want to add to that? Or we're good?
No, I don't think so. But I guess the only thing I would add is that we understand from the Career and Co-op Center, um, uh, who put together a guide um, of specifically in relation to this certificate, that that a number of careers are requiring these kinds of skills in an ongoing way.
Amazing, thanks. Okay, so next one is what kind of community projects have students worked on during the program? I assume it's the capstone, so if you could give a few
Yes.
examples.
Yeah, sure. So I can tell you the type rather than I gave you some examples of the sectors and a couple of things, but I can tell you the range of types of things students do. Like for example, toolkits are big ones or guides to for different services or relating to vulnerable populations in particular ways. So that's across all kinds of sectors. Um, they people will do program or project evaluations with an organization, and they will do that using, maybe online surveys, but also focus groups. So really develop those kinds of research skills in practical service to the organization. And also network development. For example, I'm just thinking of a couple of different projects, an arts-based network across Canada, a network of organizations within a municipality. So that gives skills on partnership development. Sometimes research is needed on the status quo of, say, for example, equity-based approaches to sport. And somebody did a pan-Canadian and US survey of organizations that have take that kind of approach. So those are some examples of the range of things people get involved in.
Love that. Thank you. Thank you so much. And yeah, those are some really interesting projects that people take on. So one more question. It is a big question. It's Toronto's going through a lot right now, housing, transit, gentrification, displacements. It's messy and politically charged. How does the program prepare students to actually show up and facilitate real conversations in those kind of environments? So maybe both of you can touch on it a little bit.
Sure, I'll start, and I'm sure Roxanne will have some insights as well. Um, I'm just trying to think. There's a lot of aspects to what we do that will help with this. So we talk about and parse out, say, the community engagement continuum of practice. It's a it's a it's a continuum that you find in the literature, and there's you look at what are your goals for relating to the community and working with the community, and what are the tools that are you required to achieve those goals. And part of that is assessing your environment. What's going on in the environment? So somebody like yourself who answered this question, there's somebody with a really good on the ground understanding of the reality in working in community right now and working in community groups with community groups. So that's a really good start. And it's part of what we are encouraging students to figure out as they develop skills. Like, we were talking about, doing hybrid meetings. It's not just about the tech, figuring out how to operate the tech. It's how are you relating to people. So I would say that a number of our activities, like our discussion activities, will provide real life scenarios. I'm just thinking of a few of them, like a number of real life scenarios that speak to exactly what you're talking about. And then the class as a group will figure out how to best tackle that situation. Like if there's a supportive housing project that's supposed to be built in a neighborhood and the residents association are complaining about it, that kind of thing. So how do you actually meaningfully move your project forward in that climate? So we do work through a lot of those kinds of cases.
Love that. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that, Roxanne.
Yes, and just to add on to what Sheila was saying, I remember years ago when I was working with social assistance, I was asked to do a community presentation, and it was basically to talk about the program that I was working with. And I went out there, audience of about 100 persons, And I got there and they were asking about like the program, but then they wanted to know more. What I found out is in that community, like that ward, because that community is not just a whole city. Like for instance, with Toronto has like many different wards, and each ward will have different issues. Some will have a combination of issues. But in this case, they had another pressing issue in addition to wanting to know about the program. So because I was familiar with some of what was going on, I was able to address it, right? Learning while you're going through this program, as someone that lives in Ontario, well, I don't live in Ontario, but if I were someone living in Ontario, what I would do is choose an area with a pressing issue, like for instance, housing shortage. I'm now working in an area where drug use is very, very high. Like every day I'm walking to the office, like I see someone folding over. That is something I would use for my project. That's something I would use to focus on for my papers, for my assignment, sorry, for my capstone project. That's something I would hone in on, because when I start to work in that area, or if I still get another job in that area and I'm asked to do a community presentation, like sometimes the police will call and ask for a presentation, I would hone in on that. That would be my area of focus because I'm knowledgeable of that. So what I would advise is using this, if you're enrolled in this certificate program, focus on an area and don't try to be Superman or Superwoman or super any person and try to fix everything in Toronto. Hone in on one or two issues and hold on to that for the duration of your certificate, because you'll be subject matter expert in that area at the end of the program.
Really good advice from the both of you, and thank you for sharing that. So at this time we don't have any open questions. I just want to thank you both for joining us today and sharing your knowledge, your insights, and your perspectives from your side. And thank you all for taking the time out of your day to attend today's session during lunch hour. If you're interested in more information about this certificate, please visit our website at continuing.torontomu.ca. And if you have any other questions, you can contact me directly at mash.chaudhry@torontomu.ca. All this information and a recording of the session, as well as a survey, will be sent to you within 24 to 48 hours. And on behalf of the Chang School and our presenters, thank you for joining us today, and have a great rest of the day. Bye, everyone.